Second, the millions of ordinary people who made these extraordinary changes didn't try to do it alone. They didn't just say, I will be more responsible. They said, we will work together until the problem is solved. Today, it's easier than ever to work together. Can you imagine how hard it was to get a message across India in 1930? We can do it now in less than a second. Finally, these movements succeeded in creating change because they took their big idea and their commitment to work together, and then they took action. Did you know that when Martin Luther King Jr. organized his March on Washington, less than a quarter of Americans supported him? But that was enough to make change because those supporters took action. They did stuff. Today, 74% of Americans support tougher laws on toxic chemicals. 83% want clean energy laws. 85% think corporations should have less influence in government. We've got the big idea and the commitment. We just haven't turned it all into massive action yet. And this is our only missing piece. So let's do it. Making real change takes all kinds of citizens, not just protesters. When you realize what you're good at and what you like to do, plugging in doesn't seem so hard. Whatever you have to offer, a better future needs it. So ask yourself, what kind of change maker am I? We need investigators, communicators, builders, resistors, nurturers, and networkers. At storyofstuff.org, you can explore these types of change makers and find your first or your next step to take action. Being a responsible citizen starts with voting. That's one of those basic things that everyone's just got to do. But it gets way more exciting and fun when we put our unique skills and interests to work alongside thousands of others. I know that changing a whole economic system is a huge challenge. It's not easy to see a clear path from where we are today to where we need to go. And there's no 10 simple things we can do.
You don't have electric toothbrushes.
That's too much work. I've tried it.
You slacker Gen Xer with your flannel and grunge music. Anyway, once you have robot
books, we all understand how important it is to have the right knowledge. And there's a lot of conversation today about content of knowledge, but people somehow seem to ignore the form, the frame in which that knowledge is conveyed. So traditionally, we had knowledge bound in a book. Of course, when you read history of knowledge organized in a form, you see that books were the result of the invention of printing. And before, it was very expensive and very demanding to put things together in a bound form. And today, we have platforms that are the result of great inventions connected with internet. So we have history of books, and now we are dealing with another form, another format that contains knowledge, but it is electronic. So I want to extend that conversation about books and freedom of speech and libraries, because I think that there is a lot of misunderstanding about platforms. People think that a platform is just a form in which those who want to push their point of view to control. But then it in some ways destroys the very idea of platform as a form of opportunity for containment of all kinds of information like we have in a book. And of course, traditionally, books were put together in libraries. So modern platforms are like libraries in a way, and also they are like books in traditional ways. So I want to expand that understanding of how we contain knowledge, because I think that one of the problems today in digital media, in platform management, is that top level executives do not understand the linguistic aspect of the nature of platforms, and they don't know how to defend platforms. Platforms have been attacked by some of the most vile people who just would destroy anything that would have no defense. So we have to look at the nature of platforms as continuation of former ways in which knowledge was contained, like books, scrolls, and we have to develop defense of platforms as forms of modern frameworks to publish knowledge. It is very important we do that, because the lack of defense for the very nature of platforms is becoming a form of modern denial of knowledge. People who are doing that attack on the very nature of digital information are people who would destroy books too if they could, because their attack is not to improve something but to destroy the very nature of the way we can receive information today. So those people who do this to such amazing organizations as Twitter or Facebook, they are really trying to destroy books that today are in the form of platforms, and that shouldn't be taken lightly. I've been reading a lot in mass media, and there is virtually no defense of the platforms. And I think that the reason is because the platforms haven't developed the understanding of security that would secure the very beauty and nature and goodness of those platforms first, and then other things can follow. And the governments seem not to be able to do it, somehow caught in a strange helplessness about it, and by not knowing how to shield and secure the treasure that platforms are, they are contributing to the strength of those people who just don't want any knowledge. They just want a certain mindless distraction of the mind. So I've been thinking about this. I analyzed this issue from just about every aspect that my mind could conceive of, and I came to the conclusion that that vacuum of self-defense for the digital platform has to be created. It doesn't exist yet. It has to be created by meeting of beautiful minds and by understanding the shared value that those platforms have for the entire world. So this is not just a matter of American companies, but companies from the whole world which enjoy the fruits of the amazing technology that internet developed. And governments too. Governments all over the world should develop ways to shield the platforms, not to help those who attack them. And the reason is there is no turning back. The platforms is the modern way that we put knowledge in containers, so to speak. Like in the previous generations, that knowledge was primarily put in books, and prior to this, in scrolls and stone, even before that, stone. So we have to transform thinking of security away from distraction of the modern digital way we format our knowledge into securing it, shielding it, nurturing it, nourishing it, treating it as part of national treasure. So hear me very carefully. It took enormous amount of effort to develop internet, to develop those platforms. Some of the most genius minds of the world got involved, put together a body of knowledge that is simply magnificent. And then to have some forces to come without any punitive measures to destroy it by the punitive measures that they create against knowledge and containment of knowledge. Containment, I mean places that contain it, that make it available. So we have a situation in which the tremendous intelligence that has developed in internet is being destroyed by minds which have no respect, no sense that they are destroying treasure. It's a little bit like a situation in Notre Dame Cathedral in France. We have this amazing church that has sustained hundreds and hundreds of years, and then fire comes in and destroys a lot of it. So what is happening right now is a lot of the attack against platforms, against internet, is by fire from those sources that should not have any influence at all on internet, because their intention is not to build it up but to destroy it. So what I'm calling for is development of a concept of platforms as being part of national treasure, which means they have to be shielded as very valuable part of national treasure. What do you do with gold that National Treasury has? You just throw it on the street and let anyone to pick it up? No, you shield it, you secure it. And the same should be with internet and with platforms and any of those valuable companies that created opportunities for mankind that sometimes are just miraculous. Ways in which people connect today would have been impossible before. And I think that one of the reasons we don't have major international conflicts today is because of internet and because of the platforms like Twitter, like Facebook, like those who are part of Google and other places. We have to look at those companies as national treasure that needs to be shielded, not attacked. And the legal system should shield Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and other platforms, not attack it. Because by attacking it, those laws and those people who are destroying valuable property of internet are actually creating a situation similar to book burning in the past ages. Because once you destroy it, there's nothing there, there's emptiness. There's really no turning back to the old ways, like print newspapers or the way we used to print books. And if the current situation of formatting knowledge is destroyed, there is nothing there. Just like what is happening in places with natural disasters. The disaster comes in and leaves desolation. So I'm appealing now to the legal system and to the governments all over the world to change their thinking about the value of internet companies and to shift away from attacking to shielding, to nurturing, to nourishing, to helping executives work things out, and to stop punitive measures against internet because it is very similar to destruction of books. You have to really understand what I'm saying in order to see the emergency and urgency that internet needs to be shielded from all of those attacks. And I will encourage you to think about how you personally can do it. All of us are using it in one way or another. So it creates value within us. And not to shield it, not to help those executives who are trying their best to put things together in the right way, people like Mark Zuckerberg or Jack Dorsey. They have to be helped, they have to be encouraged to do the right thing. They have to be treated with respect, and that also includes the way their efforts are being portrayed. Often the things that make those platforms so popular are being ignored, and focuses on a mistake or two or some aspects that could easily be improved. So what I'm calling for is to transform the attitude away from destruction to appreciation, to respect. I remember when I first was introduced to local library, I was a little girl, and the librarian was teaching me respect of handling a book, almost looking at that book as a sacred object that needs to be treasured, that needs to be treated in a very honorable way without like throwing it somewhere. And some people treat the Bible this way, but I was taught to treat all books that way, whether I agree with the content or not, because it's part of the knowledge, and that knowledge put together with other knowledge creates for us opportunities to search for truth. And I've told you my story many times, how I was injured in a car accident, and I pretty much had to search for truth of healing all over the world, all religions. And I was very fortunate. I had enough finances and opportunities to do it, and eventually my healing came from Jesus Christ of Nazareth. But God allowed me to search the whole world before He revealed His presence, because He knew my intention was to search for truth. And that's what I believe that internet is doing, allowing us to bring about information that would allow those who have access to it to search for truth. And sometimes you go through errors of other people before you find the truth. The truth, it doesn't always just reveals itself instantly. Sometimes it takes years. In my case, it took years and years before I finally understood the cause behind the force, what kind of forces were blocking my healing, and then how to overcome it. So obviously I support search for truth as good, but many people, they just want truth to be published. Everything else, if it's not the way they understand truth, they say it's fake or it's not truth. But how do they know? They may a year later realize that they were in error. So we have to create that toleration of each other's points of view and attitude of persuasion. But it will only happen if people feel that the platforms are shielded in a loving way by the governments, by the legal system, by people who use them. So that is my reflection today, to encourage you to find ways of nurturing and nourishing books, websites, the entire structure of internet, platforms. We have to develop within us a certain sense of respect to internet, but also a certain even reverence. I talked about reverence a few weeks ago. Reverence is important because if we have an attitude to knowledge, in attitude of reverence, it's easier to find truth. But if you have contempt to knowledge, if you have contempt to people who create it or search for it, even when they are in error, but the intention is to search for it, if contempt replaces respect, then the next step is distraction. So I encourage you to try respect, to develop it in yourself, to nurture and nourish it to yourself, respect to yourself, but also to other people. And I think that is the beginning of peace. because creation of demand for peace ends up in strife. And strife brings fear, and fear of punishment, spirit of fear. And we don't need spirit of fear. We need spirit of love, spirit of power, and spirit of sound mind. And those are very wonderful ways that allow us to interact. And those are ways that build, that create new things, that connect when there is void, that teach expression of love. Some people don't even know anymore how to express love. They've been so much in rage and anger that their minds, their lives forgot what the feeling of love is, how to have loving friendships, how to have loving words expressed to other people. So, in closing, I also encourage us to revive within us that natural affection of neighborly love. America was created on it, Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. We know that something is missing in the way we communicate with each other, and that is that expression of healthy affection in communication that would bring us together in brotherly love and joy.